Hello and welcome to Portugal Buyers, your exclusive buyers agency in Portugal. In today's video, we'll be discussing the various types of zoning restrictions in Portugal for real estate. This knowledge will help you make informed decisions when buying property in Portugal, avoiding any potential pitfalls that could lead to headaches down the road. Portugal is divided into many different types of zones, each with its own set of restrictions on what you can and cannot build. These zones include urban, rural, industrial, green, coastal. Urban zones are typically found in cities and permit the construction of buildings for residential, commercial, or mixed purposes. Rural zones are designed for agricultural, forestry, and other rural activities. Industrial zones are intended for manufacturing and other industrial activities. Green zones are reserved for public parks and other public spaces, and coastal zones have specific restrictions due to their proximity to the ocean. Rural zones are designed for agricultural, forestry, and other rural activities. However, if there was a ruin on the land before, it is possible to rebuild on that same site. In Portugal, a law known as Ruins Law, Lei das Ruínas in Portuguese, allows for the construction of pre-existing buildings on rural areas. This law applies to buildings that were constructed before 1951 and have been classified as ruins by local authorities. To rebuild on a rural property, you will need to obtain a permit from the local authorities. The permit will require detailed plans and specifications of the proposed construction and an analysis on the impact of the environment. Additionally, you will need to demonstrate that the reconstruction is in accordance with zoning regulations for the area. It's important to note that even if Ruins Law applies to your property, there may still be restrictions on the type of construction that is allowed. For example, there may be limitations on the height and the size of the building and the requirements for setbacks and green areas. Additionally, there may be some restrictions on the use of the building, such as limitations on the number of bedrooms or the type of activities that can be placed on the property. In summary, it is possible to rebuild on rural land if there was a ruin on it before, but you will need to obtain a permit from the local authorities and comply with the regulations for the area. It's essential to do your research and work with a reputable real estate agent or buyer's agent to ensure that you are making informed decisions when buying property in Portugal. So just for some context, I have seen this many times, and it's horrible stories if people do build on ruined land and rural areas and they end up not buying the right property with the right permits that was potentially illegally built originally, or just does not have the permission at all to build a new property on that, and you get stuck with a property which is effectively just land that cannot be used for any purpose whatsoever. So you really have to make sure that you're making an informed decision when buying property in these areas, and make sure you do your property due diligence and have somebody who you can completely trust and who has expertise in that local area. Urban areas. Urban areas are generally found in cities and permit the construction for buildings for the residential, commercial, or mixed-use purposes. In these areas, you can build single-family homes, multi-family homes, buildings, shops, offices, and other types of commercial properties. However, there are usually height restrictions, setback requirements, and other regulations that developers must follow. Additionally, each urban zone may have its own specific rules, such as requirements for parking spaces or green areas. So always bear this in mind when purchasing property there, on what you can and cannot build and the areas that you're going to have to forego for green areas and parking spaces. So just keep aware of this when making your purchase in those areas. So moving on to coastal zones. Coastal zones are areas that are in close proximity to the ocean and have restrictions due to that proximity. In these areas, you can build houses, hotels, and other types of accommodation, but there are strict regulations on the height, size of these buildings to prevent overcrowding and maintain the natural beauty of the coastline. Additionally, there are restrictions on activities such as fishing, boating, to protect the marine life and environment. It's important to note that each coastal zone may have its own set of restrictions and regulations, so it's essential to do your own research before buying property in these areas. So why are there zoning restrictions? Zoning restrictions are in place to protect the environment, promote sustainable development, and maintain the character of each area. For example, coastal zones have strict regulations to protect the coastline from erosion and maintain the natural beauty of the area. In urban zones, restrictions help to maintain the character of the neighborhood and prevent overcrowding. Moving on to navigating zoning restrictions. When buying property in Portugal, it's important to understand the zoning restrictions that apply to the area that you're purchasing in. Make sure to work with a reputable real estate agent or buyer's agency that understands the local rules and regulations and can guide you through the entire process. It's also important to do your own research and understand the restrictions that apply to the property that you're interested in. So always do your due diligence and work with a reputable professional. So thank you so much for tuning into another video. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. If you are interested in our services, we are an exclusive buyers agency here in Portugal that can help you with all of your property and relocation needs. So if you are interested in that, go ahead, click the link in the description and contact us on our website, and we can get the ball rolling and get moving, and we'll get on a free consultation call. So go ahead and do that, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.